They took everything from me. So I took my house and left. Before we begin the story, take a moment to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support means the world to our channel and helps us spread more shocking true stories to light. Now, let's get started. Growing up, I learned my place in the family early on. I wasn't the favorite, not the golden child, just Riley, the one who was always second best. My older brother, Tyler, was the shining star, the one our parents doted on, the one who could do no wrong. When we were kids, Tyler got the brand new bike while I got his old, scratched up hand-me-down. On birthdays, he unwrapped expensive gaming consoles while I got practical gifts, books, clothes, things I needed. In high school, my parents attended every single one of Tyler's football games, cheering loudly from the bleachers. As for me, they showed up to exactly one of my debate competitions, the finals, which I won, by the way. Even then, they spent half the time talking about how proud Tyler would have been if he had come. Then there was Grandpa's will, just another chapter in a lifetime of favoritism. Tyler inherited a sprawling 4-bedroom house in the best part of town, while I got a modest 2-bedroom at the far edge of the suburbs. I never even asked why. I already knew. I had overheard my mom once, though she never knew I did. "Dad, please," she had pleaded. "Tyler's going to have a family someday. He needs the space. Riley will be fine with the smaller house." Fine. That was always the expectation. I'd be fine. Tyler came first. That was just how things were. So when our monthly family dinner rolled around and Tyler and his wife, Megan, cleared their throats dramatically, I already knew I was about to hear something ridiculous. "We have some big news," Tyler announced, grinning like he had just discovered the cure for cancer. I took a sip of water, bracing myself. "We've decided to sell the house," Megan chimed in, practically bouncing in her seat. I nearly choked. Sell the house? The one Grandpa left him? The one that was supposed to secure his future? "We're investing in an incredible opportunity," Megan continued, her eyes gleaming. "Tyler's friend Jason has this amazing business venture, and we're getting in on the ground floor." Mom and Dad clapped their hands in delight. "Oh, how wonderful," Mom gushed. "What kind of business venture?" I asked cautiously. Tyler waved a dismissive hand. "It's complicated," he said, in that condescending tone he always used when speaking to me. "Jason is launching a tech platform that connects investors with startups. It's going to revolutionize venture capital." Megan beamed. "Jason is projecting a 300% return in the first year alone." I set my fork down slowly. 300%. I repeated, trying not to sound as skeptical as I felt. "That sounds ambitious." Tyler rolled his eyes. "Riley, I know you mean well," he said, smiling like I was a clueless child, "but I studied finance at Westmore College. You're an accountant who went to community college. I think I understand entrepreneurship a little better than you do." I bit my tongue. What Tyler never mentioned was that he had barely scraped through Westmore, while I had graduated with honors. I had been promoted twice in the past 5 years at my firm. But what was the point in arguing? Tyler had already made up his mind. "Besides," he added, leaning back smugly, "Grandpa gave me the bigger house for a reason. He always knew I had a better head for business." Oh, really? I could have told him the truth right then. That Grandpa only gave him the bigger house because Mom begged for it. That Grandpa, a man who built his wealth through careful saving and conservative investments, would have been horrified at the idea of Tyler selling his house to invest in some half-baked tech venture. I could have even mentioned that Jason had already run 3 failed startups into the ground in the past 5 years. But why bother? Tyler was a grown man. He and Megan had made their decision. And honestly, after a lifetime of being expected to clean up his messes, I wasn't feeling particularly inclined to save him from himself. So instead, I picked up my glass of water and took a slow sip. "You're right," I said evenly. "It's your decision." Mom beamed at Tyler. "We're so proud of you for taking this leap," she said. "It takes real courage to seize an opportunity like this." Dad nodded. "Your grandfather would be proud too." Would he, though? For the rest of dinner, Tyler and Megan talked about all the things they planned to do with their future millions. They'd travel the world, buy a vacation home, enroll their kids, Emma and Jack, in an elite private school. I stayed quiet, nodding and smiling when appropriate, mentally going over my renovation plans for my own small house. I had been updating it room by room, using money I had carefully saved from my boring accounting job. Last month, I had finished the kitchen. Next up was the bathroom. While Tyler dreamed about imaginary wealth, I focused on the real world, on the home I had built for myself. I had no idea then just how quickly his dream was about to crumble. The call that changed everything. 3 months after that fateful dinner, I was in my newly renovated bathroom, enjoying a hot shower under my brand new rainfall shower head. The steam swirled around me, the warm water washing away the stress of the work week. Then my phone started buzzing. Once, twice, then again, and again. I ignored it at first, figuring it was just a spam call or maybe a reminder I had forgotten to turn off. But when the ringing continued relentlessly, I sighed, turned off the water, and wrapped myself in a towel. 6 missed calls from Mom. Not a good sign. I barely had time to hit the call button before she picked up. "Riley, thank goodness." Mom's voice was tight, on the verge of panic. "Can you come over? It's about Tyler." I didn't need to ask. I already knew. An hour later, I pulled into my parents' driveway, and immediately I spotted something odd, a mountain of luggage and cardboard boxes piled haphazardly on the front porch. Before I could even ring the doorbell, it swung open, and I was nearly knocked over by 2 small bodies barreling into my legs. Auntie Riley, Emma, Tyler's 5-year-old daughter, squealed, throwing her arms around me. "We're staying with Grandma and Grandpa now." I gently pried her off and looked up to see my mother standing in the doorway. Her face was drawn, tired. Behind her, Tyler paced back and forth, phone pressed to his ear, while Megan sat motionless on the couch, staring blankly at her laptop. "What's going on?" I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling in my gut. Mom stepped aside, ushering me in. Then, in a hushed voice, she confirmed exactly what I suspected. "Tyler and Megan had to leave their apartment," she whispered. "The rent was just too much." So, they had burned through everything. After selling the house, Tyler and Megan hadn't just invested in Jason's shady startup. Oh no, they had splurged. A flashy red Porsche and 911. A luxury apartment downtown, complete with floor-to-ceiling windows and concierge service. Tyler had even quit his steady banking job to focus on his investment. $500,000 gone. The last of it had been wasted on a 3-week vacation to the Maldives without their kids. Mom and Dad had been the ones watching Emma and Jack, while Tyler and Megan drank overpriced cocktails on the beach. And now reality had come knocking. Jason said the first quarter is always slow, Tyler was saying loudly, finishing up his phone call. He forced a smile. "But things are about to pick up. Any day now." I said nothing. Instead, I walked into the kitchen to pour myself a glass of water. My father followed. "How bad is it?" I asked quietly. Dad sighed, rubbing a hand over his thinning hair. "Bad," he admitted. "The apartment was $4,000 a month. The car payment is another $1,500. They couldn't keep up. And the investment?" He shook his head. "Jason keeps promising a breakthrough, but I've got a bad feeling about it." "Yeah, me too." For the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Tyler scrambled to clean up his mess. He eventually took a job at a car dealership. Not exactly the high-flying finance career he had once bragged about, but at least it was something. Meanwhile, Megan tried to keep up appearances, posting carefully curated photos on social media to make it look like everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. Mom and Dad's modest retirement home was never meant to house 6 people. And soon enough, the strain began to show. One evening, my phone rang again. "Riley, sweetie," Mom said hesitantly. "I hate to ask, but we're struggling a bit. With groceries. Just with all these extra mouths to feed, you know?" I exhaled slowly. "How much do you need, Mom?" "Oh, anything would help," she said quickly. I transferred $600. Enough to help, but not enough to hurt my own budget. "Thank you, sweetheart," Mom said, though I could hear the hint of disappointment in her voice. She had clearly been hoping for more. The next month, the call came again. And the next. Soon, the $600 became a regular thing. I told myself I didn't mind. They were my family, after all. And yet, I couldn't help but notice something frustrating. Despite their financial ruin, despite the constant pleas for help, Tyler and Megan still kept the Porsche. Priorities, I guess. But the worst was yet to come. Because as I would soon learn, my parents weren't just hoping I'd help Tyler. They were planning for me to fix everything. And their solution? To push me out of my own home. The plan to take my home. For a while, I thought the worst had passed. Sure, my monthly donations had practically become a second mortgage payment, but at least I still had my own space, my home. That illusion shattered at my cousin Beth's birthday party. I was standing by the dessert table, enjoying a rare evening free from family drama, when my Aunt Patty approached me. "Riley, dear," she said, lowering her voice and glancing around as if she was about to share top-secret government intel. "How are you holding up with everything?" I shrugged, just trying to help where I can. Aunt Patty pursed her lips, hesitating. Then, she leaned in closer. "I thought you should know," she whispered. "Your parents have a plan. They love Tyler, of course, but having his whole family living with them is taking a toll. They think the best solution is for Tyler and Megan to move into your house." I nearly dropped my plate. "What?" "They say it would just be for a few months." She sighed. "But Sheila, your mom, told me they're hoping you'll eventually just move out. Let Tyler have the place." My stomach twisted. They weren't even planning to ask me. They were deciding for me. Like always. Aunt Patty squeezed my arm. "I thought you should hear from me first." It didn't seem right, them plotting behind her back. I barely remember the rest of the party. I spent the drive home replaying her words over and over in my mind. They expected me to give up my home, to let Tyler and his family take over. And I knew exactly how it would go. It's just temporary. Then months would pass. Then years. And suddenly, I'd be the intruder in my own house. No, not this time. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at my kitchen table, and made a decision. I was done. The next morning, I walked straight into my boss Dave's office. "Remember that accounting position at the Pittsburgh branch?" I asked, skipping the small talk. "Is it still open?" "Because I want the job." Dave raised an eyebrow. "That's a senior position, Riley. More responsibility. New environment. Are you sure?" I nodded. "I've been here 5 years. I've consistently exceeded my targets. My performance reviews are excellent. I'm more than qualified." He studied me for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. "I can't say I want to lose you, but..." He smiled. "You'd be great for the role. Let me make some calls." "When does the position start?" I asked. 4 weeks. Perfect. As soon as I left Dave's office, I made my next call to my friend Jenna, a realtor. "I need to sell my house," I said. Fast. She didn't miss a beat. "Your place is in a great neighborhood, and the renovations will help. If we price it aggressively, we could get offers within a week." "Do it." I spent the next 2 weeks in a whirlwind of packing, signing paperwork, and researching apartments in Pittsburgh. Jenna was right. Within 5 days of listing, I had 3 competing offers. I took the highest one, $285,000. A solid $45,000 more than I had paid for it 4 years ago. Not bad for a small house. Meanwhile, I found a sleek 1-bedroom apartment in Pittsburgh with floor-to-ceiling windows, a gym, and a rooftop terrace, all for $220,000. I made an offer immediately. Through it all, I told no one. Not my parents. Not Tyler. Mom called me twice. Once to thank me for my latest $600 transfer, and once to casually invite me to dinner. "We have something we want to discuss with you," she said, trying to sound nonchalant. "Oh, I bet you do." "Sure, Mom," I replied just as casually. "I'll be there." By then, my house was nearly empty. The moving company had taken my furniture to a storage unit in Pittsburgh. I had only 2 suitcases left, just enough clothes, my laptop, and a few personal items. I spent my last night in town at a budget hostel downtown. 3 days. That's all I had left. And then, I'd be gone. The family dinner, and their biggest mistake. Saturday evening, I drove to my parents' house for the last time. I parked a block away, so they wouldn't see my packed car. Deep breath. Here we go. Mom greeted me with a tight smile. "Riley, good, you're here." We were just about to serve dinner. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Dad sat at the head of the table, looking uncomfortable. Tyler and Megan were there too, both wearing expressions that attempted to be pleasant but came across as smug. The kids weren't there. They didn't need an audience for this. We exchanged the usual pleasantries, but I could tell they were just waiting. Finally, Mom set down her fork. Riley, honey, we wanted to talk to you about your house. I feigned ignorance. What about it? She put on that sugary sweet voice she used when she wanted something. Well, your father and I have been thinking. It might make sense for Tyler and his family to stay with you for a little while, just until they get back on their feet. I turned to Tyler, who was suddenly very interested in his plate. Megan, on the other hand, was watching me closely, a hint of challenge in her eyes. For how long? I asked, already knowing the answer. Tyler shrugged. Not sure yet. Things are starting to look up with the investment, though. Jason says we're due for a big breakthrough any day now. I nearly laughed. It had been 3 months, and he was still clinging to that fantasy. I don't think that's a good idea, I said flatly. Mom was ready for this. Oh, sweetie, your house is small, but you could take the smaller bedroom and give them the master. Or maybe you could stay with a friend for a bit, just until things settle down. And there it was, the unspoken truth. They weren't just asking me to let Tyler's family move in. They were asking me to leave. I exhaled heavily, shoulders slumping. Fine, I set my voice flat. Mom's face lit up. Tyler and Megan exchanged triumphant glances. Dad still wouldn't meet my eyes. For the rest of dinner, they talked logistics. What furniture would stay, what would go into storage, how my home office could be converted into a playroom. I barely spoke. I didn't need to, because in 48 hours, my house wouldn't be mine anymore. And they had no idea. As I stood to leave, I heard them whispering behind me. I told you she'd agree, Mom was saying. Riley's always been reasonable. Should we help her pack? Dad asked. No need, Megan replied. Most of it can just stay in the garage. It's not like she has anything valuable. I closed the door behind me, their voices fading. They thought they had won. They had no idea what was coming. The ultimate payback. The night after that dinner, I slept better than I had in months. By this time tomorrow, I would be on a plane to Pittsburgh. By this time next week, I would be settling into my new apartment, starting my new job, and finally, free from the weight of my family's expectations. They had no idea. The morning of my departure, I checked out of the hostel, grabbed my 2 suitcases, and headed straight for the airport. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because at that very moment, my family was preparing to move Tyler and his family into my home. Or so they thought. The call that exposed everything. Exactly 1 week later, I was unpacking the last of my kitchen boxes in my beautiful new apartment when my phone exploded with notifications. 27 missed calls in the span of 2 hours. 15 from Mom, 8 from Dad, 4 from Tyler. I didn't need to guess what had happened. I could picture it perfectly. Tyler and Megan pulling up to my old house in a rented moving truck, full of their belongings, expecting to waltz in and take over, only to find strangers living there. To find out that their backup plan had been sold right out from under them. I poured myself a glass of wine, debating whether to answer or let them stew in their own mess. The phone rang again. Mom. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Riley Elizabeth Harper, she screeched so loudly, I had to pull the phone away from my ear. What have you done? I took a slow sip of wine. Hello to you too, Mom. Don't you dare act innocent, she snapped. Tyler just showed up to your house with a moving truck, and there's another family living there. They said they bought it 2 weeks ago. I'll let the silence stretch for a moment before responding. That's correct, I said casually. The Andersons. Lovely couple. They got a great deal. The stunned silence on the other end was delicious. You sold your house. Mom finally choked out. Without telling anyone? How could you do something so underhanded? I nearly laughed. Underhanded? I repeated. That's rich, coming from the people who were planning to push me out of my own home without asking. Another silence. Then, in a much quieter voice, Where are you, Riley? I smiled. Pittsburgh. Got a promotion. Senior accountant at the branch office here. Pittsburgh. Mom's voice cracked. You just left? Without telling anyone? Without saying goodbye? I leaned back into my couch, stretching my legs out. Kind of like how you planned to kick me out of my own house without asking first. I pointed out. Mom huffed. That was different. No, Mom. It wasn't. We're family, Riley. We needed your help. I let out a slow breath. No, Mom. Tyler needed a bailout. And instead of holding him accountable for his mistakes, You decided I should be the one to sacrifice. Again, like always. Her voice turned sharp. That's not fair, isn't it? I interrupted. My whole life, it's been Tyler first, Riley second. When we needed new school clothes, Tyler got the expensive ones. When we both had events, you went to his. When Grandpa died, you convinced him to leave Tyler the bigger house because he'd have a family someday. And now, when Tyler screws up so badly that he loses everything, your solution is to take away the one thing I've worked for, to let him move in and push me out. Mom didn't respond. For the first time in my life, I think I had actually stunned her into silence. Then, in a voice colder than I had ever heard from her, I don't know who you think you're talking to, young lady, but as of this moment, I no longer consider you my daughter. There it was. The final blow. I had prepared for anger, for guilt trips, for manipulation. But this, it still hurt more than I expected. I swallowed, closing my eyes for a moment before responding. I think we both know that's always been the case, Mom. A sharp inhale. Oh, I added. And I'm canceling the $600 I've been sending every month. That's done. Silence. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. Her anger at me versus her need for my money. We don't want your money, she finally snapped, but her voice lacked conviction. Good, I said. Because you're not getting it anymore. Goodbye, Mom. Then, before she could say another word, I hung up and blocked her number. Then Dad's. Then Tyler's. Then Megan's. Not even a minute later, my phone buzzed again. Text from unknown numbers. Mom, using a friend's phone. Tyler, borrowing Dad's. I turned my phone off completely. Then I sat back, took another sip of wine, and enjoyed the peaceful silence. The next morning, I bought a brand new phone with a brand new number. I gave it to exactly 3 family members, Aunt Patty, Cousin Beth, and my grandma. Everyone else? Blocked. Freedom never felt so good. 6 months passed. I thrived at my new job, made new friends, dated a little. Nothing serious. Most importantly, I lived on my own terms, without the weight of my family's expectations crushing me. And then, one Sunday morning, as I was sipping coffee on my balcony, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize, but with my hometown's area code. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello. Riley. A familiar voice said hesitantly. It's Beth. I hope it's okay. I got your number from Aunt Patty. I straightened. Beth? What's going on? She hesitated. I thought you should know what's happening back home. I waited, stomach twisting. Tyler and his family are still living with your parents, she said. They're having money problems. Big ones. I exhaled through my nose. Let me guess. The investment was a scam. Yep. Jason took off with everyone's money months ago. No surprise there. And your parents? I asked. Beth sighed. Struggling. Badly. Your dad had to come out of retirement to work part-time at the hardware store. They're behind on bills because they're still supporting Tyler and Megan. I said nothing, waiting for the guilt trip, waiting for the plea to send money. But instead, Beth surprised me. I'm not telling you this because I think you should help, she said quickly. Actually, the opposite. Everyone in the family is saying you were the smart one for getting out when you did. Even your mom. She admitted to my mom that they shouldn't have tried to take your house. I stared out over the city skyline. I felt no guilt, no satisfaction either, just peace. They had made their choices. I had made mine. And for the first time in my life, I had chosen me. And I would never go back to being second best again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you in the next one.